July 27, 1902, The Clinton Morning Age, Clinton, Michigan. Poison, her passion. Jane Toppan confesses to killing 31 persons. Long list of persons done to death by trained nurse. Alienists puzzled over most remarkable case in history. Jane Toppan, spinster, aged 45, a trained nurse by profession and by confession a murderer of 31 persons, is now safely confined at the Asylum for the Insane at Taunton, Massachusetts, to which place she was taken after the alienists appointed by the court had declared her of unsound mind and irresponsible for her conduct. Her crimes outrivaled those of Lucretia Borgia. She stands singly and alone as the greatest criminal of modern times. Holmes, who was hanged at Philadelphia in 1895, was an amateur. Garcia Pelasco, executed in the City of Mexico in 1867. Valderas Massini, garroted in Barcelona 40 years ago. And Maria Pollock, put to death in St. Petersburg in 1856, were angels of mercy as compared to this woman. Her recital of crimes makes one's blood run cold. She has told of the death of her victims as if she were talking about a summer picnic at which she enjoyed herself, of the fiendish subtlety she employed in ending human lives, the patience she maintained during the paroxysms preceding dissolution, the exuberance and joy which came to her when she saw their eyelids pressed down. No ghost has come to her in the midnight hours to disturb her dreams. No smarting of conscience visited her unnatural brain that excited either tears or sorrow. The three alienists who examined her sanity marveled and thought she was an extraordinary criminal when she confessed that she had poisoned 11 persons and attempted to kill 2 others. But to these men she told only 1/3 of the tale of her career. For the purpose of his further investigation from a medical standpoint, Dr. Henry R. Stedman was told of the confession of Miss Toppan that she killed by the uses of narcotic poisons 20 persons in addition to those she had mentioned to him. Dr. Stedman has in preparation a work for psychologists, with Jane Toppan as the subject of investigation. He had intended writing merely of his own observations and detailing the admission of 11 murders she made to him. When he was told of the other 20, he decided that the magnitude of the case required the most careful investigation, and he intends to consult the attending physicians of each patient Miss Toppan says she poisoned to ascertain if her story of the manner of death is consistent with the symptoms observed by the doctors. The following is a list of those she has put to death within the past 7 years. She has promised her attorney that as soon as her mind becomes fresher, she will prepare for him a complete roster of those she has killed with morphine and atropine. Israel P. Dunham of Cambridge died May 26, 1895, aged 83, cause given, strangulated hernia. Ill 4 days. Jane Toppan nursed him. Mrs. Lovey P. Dunham, wife of Israel, died in Cambridge September 19, 1897, aged 87. Old age. Jane Toppan nursed her. Mrs. O. A. Bridgman of Lowell died August 29, 1899, aged 69. 2 days illness. Heart failure. Jane Toppan was in the house when she died and waited upon her a part of the time she was ill. Mrs. Mary McNear of Cambridge, wealthy widow, died December 28, 1900, aged 70. 2 days illness. Apoplexy. Jane Toppan nursed her for 3 hours before death. Mrs. Florence M. Calkins, housekeeper for O. M. Bridgman of Lowell, died January 15, 1900, aged 45. Ill 3 days. Heart failure. Jane Toppan was in the house when she died. William H. Ingraham of Watertown died January 27, 1900, aged 70. Heart failure. Jane Toppan nursed him. Miss Sarah E. Connors, matron of St. John's Theological School Refectory, died in Cambridge February 11, 1900, aged 48. Complication of diseases. Under care of Jane Toppan. Mrs. Alden P. Davis of Calumet died in Cambridge July 4, 1901, aged 62. Chronic diabetes. Jane Toppan nursed her. Mrs. Annie E. Gordon of Chicago, daughter of Mr. and Mrs. Alden P. Davis, died at Calumet July 31, 1901. Short illness. No death certificate. Jane Toppan nursed her. Alden P. Davis died in Calumet August 8, 1901, aged 65. Few days illness. No death certificate. Jane Toppan nursed him. Mrs. Mary E. Gibbs, daughter of Mr. and Mrs. Alden P. Davis, died in Calumet August 13, 1901, aged 40. 2 days illness. No death certificate. Jane Toppan nursed her. Mrs. Edna Bannister of Tunbridge, Vermont, sister of O. M. Bridgman, died in Lowell August 27, 1901, aged 77. 2 days illness. Heart failure. Jane Toppan was in the house when she died. Of the whole number, there was not one case that had aroused any suspicion on the part of the physician who, depending upon the nurse, was using his best skill to restore the patient to health. Miss Toppan said she had heard of no question by any doctor that she had not carried out his instructions to the best of her ability, or that she had not shown professional enthusiasm and faithfulness. The same doctors, she said, had engaged her in subsequent cases. Her counsel was satisfied with homicidal details long before she finished, but she declared that she wished to tell the whole story. "Well, how did you kill them?" she was asked. "I gave them doses of morphine and atropine tablets in mineral water and sometimes in a dilution of whiskey," she said. "Then I also used injections, just as I did at Calumet. I do not remember how I killed them all, but those that I recall were poisoned by atropine and morphine. My memory is not good. I forget some things. No, I have absolutely no remorse. I have never felt sorry for what I have done. Even when I poisoned my dearest friends, as the Davises were, I did not feel any regret afterward. I do not feel any remorse now. I have thought it all over, and I cannot detect the slightest bit of sorrow over what I have done." Upon successive visits of her counsel, Miss Toppan added details to the narrative of crime that had been the history of her career as a nurse during the last 10 years. This confession was made to Judge Bixby, and he instantly advised with the state authorities that a committee of experts be selected that would be satisfactory. To the physicians, she was uncommunicative for some days, refusing to answer questions and otherwise acting ugly. Finally, she agreed to tell them of her life. For 5 hours, the doctors listened to her story, the strangest and bloodiest they had ever heard. She told them that she had killed her first victim when a young girl and while attending an undergraduate school for nurses. That a desire to see one die as a result of her own methods was so strong as to overpower her. The victim was a young man well on the road to recovery when she gave him poison. To her, the death rattle in his throat was as sweet as music, and when she saw him cold in death, she kissed him. Soon the mania became an uncontrollable passion, she said. No voice has as much melody in it as the one crying for life. No eyes as bright as those about to become fixed and glassy. No face so beautiful as the one pulseless and cold.